Hey, it's been a while. Hope you guys are doing well. And thank you so much for tuning in after our short but significant hiatus. So, today I'll just start by asking you a question. How do you feel near a person who's different than you? Someone who has a different color to their skin, a different attire, a different accent, a different choice of the person they love, or just anything unknown, anything different. Our collective history is a witness to the fact that outsiders haven't been very kind to us. But at the same time, the oppression we faced has given us sort of a complex that makes us hungry for approval and thus polarizing all our thoughts. We don't know whether to follow a tradition or whether to stick to our land or just step out. The following conversation is a Zoom call we had with Tim. So please pardon for a few disturbances here and there, but the conversation was just too precious and priceless for us. Also, after your wonderful response to Bonfire, we thought we might bring you another raw conversation. This is a long episode, guys, so relax with it. About Tim, I met him in a dance masterclass that he taught, and from that moment itself, I knew something had altered in me. And that happened because I took a leap of faith and talked and learned from a stranger from a very far off land. Timothy Wilson is a dancer and actor and was born and raised in California, US. His theater credits include Disney's Jungle Book, A Christmas Carol, and The Wedding Singer. And his TV appearances include the 53rd Grammys and Glee on Fox Television Network.
Also, Tim, I have seen the Purple Piano Project, the episode of Glee you were on, a lot of times, and I didn't recognize you because I have watched Glee like 5 times, and especially like the
Yeah.
first 3 seasons because I love that show, and I saw it and I'm like, oh my God, Canonized Tim.
Yes, I am Canada.
Yeah, and that's exactly how you say it. It's so amazing. And then you go on and do this amazing tap routine, and I'm like, okay, how did I miss it? How did I miss it? So,
Yeah, Anukul's been telling me that he will send me the video as well because I haven't watched Glee. He's like, I'll especially send you the one where Tim is there because you need to watch only that. I was like, okay, that's done.
yeah.
And it's really funny. I wasn't really a huge fan of Glee. I mean, I liked it. To me, I mean, like I enjoyed it. I grew up singing in choir in high
Hmm.
school, so
Okay.
I understood how kind of cheesy it all was as well. But I still
Okay.
I still
Yeah.
liked it. But that's the whole point of being an artist. When the job calls, if you get a gig, then you have to. A job is a job, so whether you like it or not. So once I got the job, I was like, oh my gosh, Glee is my favorite show. I love it so much. But
Yeah.
I feel so blessed and so fortunate to have had that opportunity because even now, when I file, when I file things like my taxes, I actually get money back from that show that was done years ago. So
Oh,
Oh
it still
wow.
comes in
Wow.
full circle, and I think it's also an amazing thing as well. So I look forward to tax season because I actually get a pretty nice check because of that show, actually, which is a great thing. It's really
Yeah.
awesome. So
Benefits
yeah,
of
I'm
being
I'm
on a
always
television network.
yeah. There are many things that go into being on a television network show,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a good positive thing that comes out
So, yeah, I know that you're going back to the US, and I could not let you go without having this session.
of it.
And and that's why we're gonna ask you some questions, a few silly questions, a few questions that
yes.
that matter as well. And
Yes, I'm an open book.
yeah, oh, I forgot to say it in your bio. I had written it actually that he is an open book by his own admittance. So it's gonna be so amazing.
So, Anukul's also told me that you've been stuck in India during this whole lockdown session. And the name
Yes,
of
I
our
have.
podcast is Late Night Rants. So, one of the rant that I could think that you would want to talk about is being quarantined in India. So,
Oh my
how,
God.
so just how has it been like?
It's been a blessing, and then it's also just kind of been, I don't even want to say a curse. It's been a blessing, and then it's just kind of been like blah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm very fortunate and blessed enough to have I stay in a 3 bedroom by myself. My room is pretty spacious. I have my own bathroom. I don't have to,
Hmm.
answer to anybody. So that's a very positive
Right.
thing. On the opposite side of that, it does get very lonely. I do, in I guess in normal settings, I would normally have friends over. We would hang out. They would even come over at nighttime. But I like the liberty of being like, oh yeah, come hang out. And then I also like the liberty of like, okay, you should go home now because I'm gonna stay in my own room and I want to, take off my clothes and
Yeah.
sleep naked, like so yeah, I definitely I like having control of that. But during this lockdown, had I known that it would have been like this, then I would have definitely might have stayed with a friend. I would have definitely left the city.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And not been in like the whole red zone and all of that. That's why I try not to watch the news because all of my Indian friends are so concerned and I love it. They're like, "You're in a red zone, don't go out." And I'm like, "Well, I have to eat. What do you mean don't go out? Like I have to." Yeah, it's been interesting. I've dealt with it well though.
So my next question would be a personal one, hidden in a
Sure.
generic one, asking, can anyone dance? Like even people with 2 left feet, can they dance? Can they learn how to dance at any age, at any point in their lives?
Yes, I feel like dance is available for anybody and everybody that wants to do it. Dance doesn't necessarily mean that you're dancing to be a professional dancer. You can just People use dance as a form of exercise, just like they think,
Yeah.
Tai Chi to the gym or even yoga. Classes that are available. They can go in there and get their workout, and that will it increases mobility in the body, and you're stretching, and you can listen to music, and then amongst other people having that same energy. So any dance is available for anybody. Choosing dance as a profession is when
Yeah.
um, I have realized that a lot of the dancers, they are apprehensive about whether or not they should pursue a career in dance. I tell my students it has nothing to do with, what age you started at, but what you do with your time once you begin the training. So if you
Yeah.
really want it, you will go after it and get it. I think anything is possible. Um, and it just all depends on the individual and how bad they want it, how willing they are to sacrifice for their dream, for their vision.
Right.
It's sacrifice,
Yeah.
it's a commitment. You have to love the working and the sweating and everything else more than what you get out of it, more than the likes and all of that is so materialistic. It comes and it goes, but you have to go back to the studio. The painter must go back to the blank canvas and become a vessel to create something new. The writer must go back to the blank sheet of paper and think again, and keep using their imagination to write out the next thing. So the same thing applies with the dancer. But as in terms of just anybody wanting to dance and learn, and even with 2 left feet, even with 3 left feet, they can do it.
Yeah.
It's available for everybody, and it should be available. So yeah, dance for me is for everyone. Now, what you do with it, and if you want to become a professional, then that's when I feel like your intentions and your goals and what you want for yourself should change. But yeah, put on some music, pour you a glass of wine or water,
Yes.
and
I prefer the wine.
I'll go for the wine too and the whiskey, and then put on some music and then just have a good time and dance.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that advice into consideration the next time I actually join something. Definitely.
So Tim, I actually had a question regarding your style of teaching actually. So like throughout in all your classes, I've seen that you have a lot of emphasis on old school techniques and old school styles and the importance that it has even in your foundation as you're learning. However, having said that, you are really open to experimentation, to new styles as well. So,
Yeah.
how do you create that balance for yourself and even for your students, to like stick to the foundation and like stick to those old school ideas of training and yet explore? Because that's something people struggle with.
Yeah, I feel like you always have to keep updating yourself. That's part of evolving and growing, just in general. So
Hmm.
that research and all of that will never should never stop. But it's important that we never forget our history. It's important that we never forget where we come from as people, what our culture is,
Hmm.
and in terms of jazz dance, so as people discover and who they are as artists, and as people continue to discover even new styles and embrace new styles, I feel like sometimes we embrace the new so much that we do forget about the old. And I feel like the teachers that have trained me, that I have been brought up with, were dancers from Paula Abdul, Michael Jackson, Prince
Hmm.
era, like
Yeah.
those type of artists.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew the importance for some reason of how just old school. As a young kid, I'm very fortunate that I it was something that I just knew. Like no one taught that. I just knew that the old school is where it's originated from, and I know I have to embrace that, keep those techniques, but still learn how to switch it up and change it and grow and evolve. So even in my earlier years of just discovery and watching movies, my mom was a huge, it still is a huge fan of old Hollywood films
Hmm.
and movies like that, and a lot of the old Hollywood films incorporated tons of dancing,
Yeah. Yeah.
tons of like jazz dancing or very like swing type of dancing.
Hmm.
So, and it excited me. And I think that's one thing that I realized, that, okay, if it excites me this much, then this type of work is important. And
Yeah.
then once I really started to discover the Bob Fosse and the Gene Kelly and the
Hmm.
Debbie Allen and,
Yeah.
these the Nicholas brothers and all of these amazing artists, then I was like, okay, this is the old school. This is something else. Even researching into 70s dancing and 80s jazz dancing. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just a whole nother time as well. You talk about the disco era, you talk about, the rock era. It had
Yeah.
so many, and then the 90s were like the introduction of like hip hop. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, not introduction, but, the style and
Boy
all of
bands
that.
and all.
So,
Yeah.
yes, boy bands and
Yeah.
NSYNC, yes, Britney Spears, Madonna, all of those people. Um, it, it and to be honest, it all is inspired by one another. Not a lot of people know this, but if you go on YouTube, and everyone that's listening, I want you to do this. Go on YouTube and you type in um, you type in Bob Fosse and Michael Jackson comparison, and there's one video, and it's fantastic. Bob Fosse is doing it's a music video. Fosse choreographed, and he's in the desert, and he has the same hat like Michael Jackson's doing, the same black pants, everything, the same shirt, and he's doing the moves. But Bob Fosse originated first, and Michael Jackson was, to me, I feel like Michael Jackson is a pop artist, but to me, Michael Jackson is a jazz dancer, a different type of jazz dancer, because he was inspired by Fred Astaire. He was inspired by Bob Fosse. If you look on that video,
Hmm.
the same thing that Michael Jackson is doing is almost the exact same thing that Bob Fosse is doing. And to me, I love Michael Jackson. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
compare both videos, I'm like, there is nothing like the original. Even when Michael
Right.
Jackson tries to emulate Bob Fosse, I'm like, oh my gosh, Bob Fosse does it way better, because it's in
Yeah.
his blood, it's in his
Yeah.
body. Not saying
Yeah.
that Michael Jackson is terrible, because he's not, but that's going back to your question, Anupul. It goes back to admiring the old school. Michael Jackson admired what Bob Fosse was doing, took those
Hmm.
same moves, but then made it Michael Jackson. Then flared it up a little bit. Then maybe did more hip rolls and everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And
Right.
so he intertwined the two. He kept his creative force and then was inspired by Bob Fosse's creative energy and then
Yeah.
infused those together. So I think you must do the research and you must know the past and the history so that you can be inspired by it. Michael Jackson was inspired. Smooth Criminal, all of that, Fosse, all of
Oh,
it.
I still remember your routine on Smooth
Yes, go on
Criminal.
YouTube and have a little research fun. It's actually you'd be amazed on
Yeah.
how much Michael Jackson was influenced by those different artists, and that's what I do with my choreography and try to encourage my dancers to always do the research, and to watch movies and to watch the same movies over and over again, and
Yeah.
to listen to the same songs over and over again. I feel like dancers here in India. They listen to one song and they're like, okay, I got it, and then they kind of like, move on to the next. And
Yeah.
for me, I feel like you can't listen to one song and be like, okay, I understand it. You have to listen to it again and maybe, listen to it when you're sad, listen to it when you're happy. It has different meanings. It has a different
Mm-hmm.
vibration every time.
Mm.
And that's what really influences my choreography is when I listen to the music when I'm really familiar with the music. So then I can really be free and play around and choreograph and do what I,
Mm.
really want to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of these artists are influenced from the past. And a
Yeah.
lot of dancers think that they're creating something new and they're not at all, like
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although Michael Jackson, I always go back to Michael Jackson, although he was and still is an icon and one of the best. He got a
Yeah.
lot of those moves from Bob Fosse, from James Brown, So,
Hmm.
and it's okay because it's a respect issue. He respects it. I think
Right.
by him becoming so famous, and his execution of dancing and choreography and just who he is as an artist is paying respect to those artists, is keeping those artists' names and what they created alive as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it still stays in full circle.
That actually encompassed a lot of our other questions as well. So thank you so much, Tim, for
Right.
putting it like that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, also the way people actually get acquainted to music these days is because the music that has evolved throughout the centuries is like music of today's times is the byproduct of all of those things. But at
Yes.
the same time, it's so important to go back in history and see how even that music has evolved.
Oh yes, if you can't connect to the music, if you cannot connect, right away and listen, um, and feel the drums and feel the tambourine and feel the,
Hmm.
the sitar, feel whatever instruments. If you can't feel that as a dancer, then you've lost half of the battle, because the music is what really needs, has to push you. We forget as artists, especially as dancers, that we are entertainers. We don't train to become professional teachers or professional students. We train to become professional dancers to go out into the world and
Hmm.
to potentially get work. So I think we lose
Right.
sight of that. You have to connect to the music. The music needs to be in your body. It needs to be a part of you. As an audience member, personally, I like to see dancers, that become the instruments. A dancer that you hear a drum section like ba ba ba. You see a dancer just living with the
Yeah.
drums. That's what's exciting. Is they become the instrument. It's almost an outer body experience because you allow
Hmm.
yourself to become a vessel to the music. You allow yourself to become free and open, a blank canvas, as a lot of people would say, and you
Yeah.
become moldable and shapeable. And that's our true nature as dancers, especially as artists. That we never forget that we are entertainers. We must entertain. It's our job. People come to these shows to escape a reality. We forget that we think that it's all about us, and some people that might pay for that $50 ticket or that that whatever, however much the ticket is, they'll
Hmm.
pay for that ticket, leaving their life, having a bad day, and going to a show, dressing up, going out for a glass of wine and going to the theater just to escape their reality. And then you as a performer are like, I feel this type of way, or I'm my body, all of these excuses, then sit down if you have an excuse and let somebody else take your place who's willing and understands the importance of entertaining and being an artist. I think being tired is another fucking excuse, because yes, you're tired, but also your limits. I get tired all the time, but then that's when the true fighter and the push has to come in. And so we forget that it's our job and it's our duty, especially when people pay to come and see a performance. I never forget that when I'm dancing, that someone is coming to experience this, and someone might be in a very terrible situation. Someone might be on the verge of even suicide, and that show, them might see me dance. And I know it's so dramatic to say that, but it is true. You never know what people are going through when they come see you perform. I've had people come up to me all the time, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I was only watching you," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you. Oh my God, I know, right?" I bring some humor to it, but it also reassures me that Tim, you are doing what you're supposed to do. You don't expect someone to come up to you. That's not the point. But just to have someone do that was very gratifying and reassured me that, okay, you're doing the right thing. That's what it's about, to touch whoever is watching. And that person felt so compelled to come up, and express that they were so moved by me. And so, that's the energy that you want to put out, and that, to me, again, it all correlates back to music and all of that. That's why, to me, it's important to do the research, to know your music, to know what you're dancing about, to connect to it, to learn how to listen to what the lyrics are. It's not only about the beat, it's about the lyrics. That's why I recommend listening to good music, because lyrics nowadays, they just talk about going to the grocery store and buying lipstick and then going home and then crying about their boyfriend. I'm like, oh, okay, what kind of song is this? It's a lot of that's going on, so it's important to listen to the right music with the right messages. And all of that. Even last thing I'm going to say, and then you guys can ask me another question. Last thing I'm going to say is, I'm a huge fan of Bollywood, and
Yes, I was going to ask you that you said sitar, and I was like, do you have any Bollywood song that is your go-to? It could be any
okay,
Hindi
so
or even
don't
any
laugh
other
at me. I'm
language.
going to try to sing it.
Oh!
Oh, acha. It took me a second.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. I heard it once and I was like, wow. For some reason, I don't know why that song made me. It didn't make me emotional, but the melody and everything, it was soothing to me. And I was like, oh, I like this song.
And
I was just like listening.
Do you know it's actually sung by a Pakistani singer?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Bollywood
And that
song,
could
but
be
it's
like
sung by-
controversial, right?
Is that Atif Aslam?
Yeah, it's Atif Aslam.
Yeah, he's banned in India.
He's banned in
my
India
God.
now. Guess what? Yeah.
He's banned. That's terrible.
I know.
Yeah,
But yes, I am a
but-
huge fan of Bollywood, and I actually, going back to like knowing your history and everything, I'm actually a bigger fan of Bollywood in the 70s and in the 80s.
Okay.
I've done huge, and I forget her name. It's bothering me. Very fair skin. She was very
Helen.
popular dancer.
Helen.
Yes. Oh
Helen.
my God.
Helen.
Yeah.
I went on a huge Helen YouTube search extravaganza. Like, I was watching tons and tons of videos of her, and I was just blown away by the commitment. Even I think Bollywood dance and the way that they express themselves, especially the women, were far more advanced and ahead of the time than how Bollywood is perceived now. It's the glitz and the glamour, and
true.
All of that goes into it. And back then, when Helen and even other Bollywood actresses that I can't remember their names, but when they fell at the man's feet, or when they when they're like so dramatic, I live for it. It just to me, it just came from a much more like real place of emotion, and they were very much in their sexuality and womanhood. I felt like, and at
Yeah.
a time, back in the 70s and 80s and even early 90s, with we all know how it is here culturally. It is
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
during that time, especially for women's rights, and I'm a huge feminist in terms of women's rights. So during that time as well, you can only imagine the type of, I don't want to say danger, but how important that work that they did was.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I admire even those dancers and even those artists back then, and I've done my research for that as well, because I know the importance. Even I can't come to India without even doing my work, and that's one thing that I will always stay true to is respecting the history and the culture. So I couldn't come here and be like, oh, I'm a huge fan of Bollywood and not know about old school Bollywood and not know about where it
Right.
usually was
Yeah.
originated from and where it came from.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
thing. Same thing with yoga, even. You got to come back to the source. You have to come back to where it's originated from, no matter how many videos and backbends and all these things that people are recording themselves. You always go back
Yeah.
to the source.
In fact, it's hilarious that I joined yoga after you suggested it.
I
And
was I was looking at the dancers and I was like, do you guys do yoga? And everyone's looking at me and everyone's looking at each other. And I'm like, why are you guys staring at each other? Look at me. I'm the one who's speaking. I'm like, do you guys do yoga? And then everyone's like, no, we don't.
I know.
And for me, I just feel like yoga and dancing is the perfect marriage. I feel like it's
Yeah.
It
like,
it was so embarrassing, I must tell you, but to like that you are coming from the US and telling us that you guys need to respect your heritage. There is a lot of stuff that you don't know. So stop being ignorant.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, listen, I love the culture here, and I'm a natural person. And so, yes, you're absolutely right. I would be like, have you guys lost your mind? Like, you guys have yoga and Ayurvedic, like in Ayurveda, like, what have you guys
Yeah.
completely lost it? Like, what's going on here?
Hmm.
And I just thought it was important to also realize that, I always say there's a method to my madness, as crazy and outspoken as I am. Like, I do it for a reason, because it is important, and there's so many dancers now who I have encouraged and influenced for them to get into yoga, and they send me videos of their progress doing yoga, and I do see a change in their bodies. And
Hmm.
Yeah.
there are a couple of dancers that even changed their eating habits, and they're like, oh, I'm a vegan because of you, and it's the best decision I've ever made. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't even expect to reach people to that level. But
Yeah.
Hmm.
it's a very important thing. That's why I choose to be the example. I choose to be crazy and outspoken and speak my mind and speak the truth and tell people what it is that exactly they might not even want to hear. But I owe it to that individual, just out of respect for that human, just out of respect for that energy, that they deserve the truth, in knowing and hoping that someone in return feeds that same energy as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
Talking about cultures and heritage and diversity, uh, United States is one country where people migrate to every year. So many people migrate, and it is super diverse in terms of its ethnicity, religions, races, colors, everything. And what people don't realize from an outside perspective is that India is intrinsically very diverse. If you move from one
Yes.
state to the other, the languages change, the cultures change completely, the food changes, everything changes. And you, as a person who interacts with youngsters from both the countries, um, what kind of a difference do you see in the mindset of the youngsters in terms of being inclusive in the midst of the diversity that they see around, and drawing a comparison between both the countries?
I think the beautiful thing is that in both places, in both countries, that we are very actually pretty similar in a lot of ways, especially like the younger generation. Because there's technology and social media, and
Yeah.
even the
Hmm.
kids here, I see these. I mean, it's crazy to me, but I saw this family that, was just living like on the side of the road, and they had like a tarp up and did what they could to, to survive. And then their
Yeah.
kids are sitting on like a Galaxy S8 phone, sitting down, holding a phone, watching a movie. And so
Yeah.
in a way, they still manage to stay current, especially this younger generation and even the millennials, like our generation.
Yeah.
We're very lucky, we're very fortunate to have social media in a way that it can open our eyes to so much, even though that might not be available and accessible for people here in India. Um,
Yeah.
I do feel like the difference is that yes, people go to the U.S. In a way to feel free, in a way to be able to make their own decisions, kind of, just to be able to be around other religions and other type of people that express themselves so freely as well, that
Yeah.
say whatever is on their mind,
Yeah.
that will wear whatever they want to, or be
Regardless of
who
the social
re-
taboos and everything.
regardless of the social, yes, the
Yeah.
social aspects that go along with being here in India. um
Yeah.
but but then in a way, I feel like the US lacks a bit of humility and lacks a bit of, it is family oriented out there, but the humility, and also I can't really pinpoint it though. There's love in the US, but it's very different here in India. Like I call India my second home. It is definitely my second home. It's my fifth time visiting here. Like if I didn't love it so much, I would not be here for 5 times. I do like it in the sense of, like you said, it is so diverse, and I'm not really a city person. I mean, I love the city here and there, but I love nature, and I love more rural towns. And so when I would travel and go backpacking, that's when I really fell in love with India, because it was the people. When I
Yeah.
went to Kerala, I was like, oh my gosh, I can live here for the rest of my life. Actually, and that was
Yeah.
4 years ago. I went to Kerala 4 years ago, and I was like, yep, that's it. I think I'm gonna call my parents and be like, all right, see you in the next life. That's it. Because it was just so
Yeah.
peaceful, and I got so accustomed to the way of living and the people, and then the food out there. It's just very different. So yeah, I mean, India definitely has its ups and downs, and the same thing with the U.S. But what unites us is really, it even goes down to the music, goes down to the fashion, goes down to, I mean, we're
Yeah.
so related in so many ways, actually. Even my dad, and I think it just goes to show you how, when people aren't familiar with a place like India or the United States, they tend to judge. So even my dad
Yeah.
had never been here in India, and I told him that I was coming here and I was gonna go backpacking. My dad literally, like, almost half of my family had a panic attack, and they were like, "Be careful, be careful." They,
Yeah.
they serve, they serve gods there, and I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, and you know that there are also Christians and Muslims and Catholics and even atheists here. Will you look
Yeah.
at that?" I'm like, they have this perception, and even like, and sadly in the U.S., when people think of the U.S., they do think of, oh yes, free, I can be myself, and pop culture and all of that. But then, what I have heard from Indians that, like, oh yeah, well, I've heard Americans are rude or something, and I'm like, yeah, it's true, yeah, it's very true. A lot of the things I would agree with. I would be like, yeah, oh, that's bad. And then I'm like, yeah, America's kind of terrible, but then it's great. So it's the same how I feel like people view India. I feel like people are like, India's fantastic, and then some people are like, oh my gosh, India's terrible. Um,
Yeah.
so the dynamics are the same in terms of opportunity. Sure, there'll be a little bit more opportunity in the U.S., but I also tell my dancers, going back to to dancing and training, I always tell my dancers that there are other places to visit besides the U.S. as well. The United States is not the only amazing, quote unquote, amazing place to visit. We're all,
Yeah.
I feel like we're very much alike. I think the Indian and African American community and culture is very similar. Indians were just as enslaved as Africans.
Yeah.
Indians were brought all over the world as much as Africans and enslaved. And we don't talk about that as well. You know, Indians
Yeah.
suffered tremendously um,
Under the British rule.
from the
Britishers.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, 1000%.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we are much alike. That's why I connect to the Indian culture so much, and I probably feel like I have maybe a little bit of Indian blood in me. You know, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually.
Because we are that connected, and we are, you know, we really are that connected as much as we don't think we are.
Though, why is it that somehow because VJ asked about inclusivity. So why is it that somehow our acceptance and our willingness to include people in our own lives is limited to our shared grief, or our shared oppression? Why does it always come from that?
Because I just feel like maybe the Indian culture, maybe you guys have yet to really do the research and like the unlearning of what you've been taught. I
Yeah.
Hmm.
think that once you unlearn certain things, and um, I feel like that helps in the journey into becoming more inclusive, and inviting more people in for collaborations, and not
Hmm.
staying within the five people that you know, expanding and branching out. For me, I think that you have to do the work. I think the work is important. You know,
Yeah,
if you're
that
questioning,
effort. Yeah,
that's a good thing. Yeah, that
yeah.
effort. If you have that small voice that questions, yes, that you're in the right direction. That's
Hmm.
when you know you're realizing, okay, something's a little off here. Maybe I haven't been taught the right history. Why do I feel uncomfortable with that person sharing their ideals with me? And you know, and you, because also, again, unlearning and undoing. You know, some person might come up to you and want to share something, and you might have the perception of, oh my gosh, they're trying to steal my ideas, or they're trying to get in on a secret, or trying to get ahead. And it's like, no, they just want to collaborate and be inclusive, and
Yeah.
share,
Yeah,
and it's about the experience. So there's a level of openness that has to come with it as well.
Right.
Being open
yeah,
to new ideas that will ignite the flame of being inclusive. You know, that would open up your perception of, okay, well, maybe I do like that person's energy, and I do like
hmm,
how outspoken she is. I do like she doesn't take shit from people, and she speaks her mind in front of everybody. Oh my gosh, I like that. And she's a
Yeah.
brilliant writer, and she speaks well. I can learn from that. That's how you become
Yeah.
inclusive.
hmm.
Then you become friends with that person. Then you talk to that person, and you share ideas, and then you're like, yes. And then both of you guys is leading you up towards the bigger picture.
Yeah. You are a person who always has this prophecy of living your truth, and like you're literally the embodiment of living your truth.
Oh, thank
so
you.
but sadly we live in this world, and in our world people like rush to fit you into existing archetypes or stereotypes, and especially if you are a minority, on the basis of anything, your color, your ethnicity, or your sexuality, anything. So how
Right.
do you manage to keep yourself sane and authentic when this happens? Because
Yeah.
like again, I said the same thing. You never compromise with who you are as a person. And
Never.
yeah. So so how, Tim? How do you manage that?
But you know, it's taken me a while to get to this place of like feeling very comfortable in my skin. And there are times where I do feel insecure. I always say I'm still human, you know. So I always go through those ups and down moments. But the first thing, as you were answering me, as you were asking me this question, the first thing that came to my mind was, um, I think the beautiful thing, especially as artists and as free thinkers and people that I feel like VJ and Anukul, like we are in the same mindset of free spirited people.
Hmm.
That I think the most beautiful thing in all of this is that, and what people fail to realize is that we get to choose our family. We get to choose who we want to be with.
Right.
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
yes, we were given our biological family, right? But sometimes biological families don't even have a positive vision for yourself. And at the end of the day, I have always looked at it like this. Yes, my family brought me into the world, and I'm very grateful for that. But at the end of the day, I tell my mom, I'm like, just because you had me does not give you permission to lose out on what you want out of your life. Don't use me as an
Yeah.
excuse.
Imagine saying that in Indian society.
Imagine, right? No, when I said that to my mom, she almost killed me though. Like seriously, like she,
Yeah.
like she literally almost like stabbed me in the throat. But but seriously, like we lose sight of that. And for me, I once I moved out of my parents' house and started hanging out with people who were like myself and as crazy and outspoken and just in their skin, even when I was still coming into my own,
Hmm.
I chose those people. And so that actually is, for me, I think is the greatest thing, is that you get to choose who you want to be around with, who you want to surround yourself with. And I
Hmm.
think
Right.
being around, energy is a big thing. You're around a negative person and someone that complains all the time and is not motivated, then you will start complaining, and you will become negative, and then you will be unmotivated, and then you will not do anything in your life, because that you
Right.
become the company that you keep. Even when it
Yeah.
comes to family, you have a lazy mom, or you have a lazy dad, or you have a lazy sibling that don't anything, and they're negative, 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 negative. They're not, they're not keeping up with this, they're not keeping up with that. They're unwilling to update themselves, then you become that. You become unwilling to update yourself. You become lazy. You become this. You become judgmental. You become
Hmm.
Yeah.
non-progressive. So it's the company that you keep that also allows you to live your true authentic self. The company that I keep, all of my friends are go-getters. Every last single person that I consider a friend knows what they want to do in life, has goals and dreams, is environmentally friendly, is consciously aware of mind, body, spirit, and soul, knowing that there's a higher connection. All of my friends are motivated. All of my friends know what they want to do in life, and all of my friends speak the truth. That is
Hmm.
because I have made a conscious effort to surround myself with those type of people. When you surround yourself with people who are like you, then when you go out into other settings where it might be you might be by yourself, then because you've given yourself that time to be authentic, you don't have a problem or an issue with going up to someone and starting a conversation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or just very simple things. And we've even lost sight of that. We go to bars only to stand around and be on our phones and look at each other. We could be doing that in the house. Why do we have to go out to the setting? So we've just lost sight of many things. And I truly believe it's the company that you keep. And also, if you're around motivated people who are encouraging, I encourage my friends. I call my friends out. If something is bullshit, I'm like, oh yeah. So I don't know if I agree with that, but you can do that if you want. I am that type of friend that. But you should every now and then, look at your circle of friends and see who really checks up on you when you're sick, who
Yeah.
really checks up
Yeah.
on you on the minor things. That's when
Yeah.
very minor things. I've had friends that have checked up on me from back in the U.S., and I'm like, okay, these are the people who I know who will always have my back.
Yeah.
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 We have many acquaintances, right? But there are very few who we can actually call friends. And make sure that those people who you actually call a friend is a friend who will push you, who will
Yeah.
motivate you, who sees themselves in you, and it's like, hell no, I'm not gonna let you be a piece of shit because I'm not a piece of shit. And you're my friend, and you're in my circle. No, it needs to be like that. That's how we build each other up.
Okay. Tim, but I need to ask this. Tim, do you remember that moment when you knew ki that this is my moment where I know my truth and I have accepted it? Like, what was your feeling at that particular moment when you found that out?
You know, as weird as it sounds, it happened when I went out dancing one night in New York. I went to a disco club. I went out by myself. I went to a bar. I went to happy hour. I got super wasted. And I was like, I got so drunk, but I knew that I just needed, I told myself, I'm like, you need a night out. And it was just a very random night out. And it was like when I first moved to New York, and I went out, and I just remember there was one moment being in the club by myself, And I just had a moment of like, wow, nobody knows me right now, and I get to do or be whatever I want in this moment. And I just remember throwing my arms in the air and just turning around in a circle and just like, I remember I even started laughing, and that laughter kind of like brought, kind of slight tears in my eyes, but I was not about to cry in the club. Okay. But it definitely was something where I was like, wow, like it was an overwhelming experience and feeling where it brought such an emotion out of me. That in that moment, I felt free of like, wow, no one knows me. And I was just dancing, and I was doing whatever I wanted to do without feeling embarrassed. And that set me free, actually, of being like, oh my gosh, I did not know that moment, taking that time for myself, having a moment where it was almost like an outer body, where I was just like lost in the music and just inspired by seeing other people and being around so many different people, around straight people, around gay people, around transgender people, around people that just like to dress up, people who wear costumes, being around gothic people that wore all black, or being just so many different people and experiences, and just being in that space and being like, wow. Yeah, I feel like when I went to New York in a way really helped me, really helped free myself up, because going in the subways and just roaming around the city and just walking in random places, I saw so much diversity and people dressing however they wanted to, saying whatever they want to say, as crazy as like a drag queen. There was one situation, a drag queen is walking down the street, and then some man is like, oh, says something ignorant, and then the drag queen turns around and was like, well, fuck yeah. Like, to see that on, like, whoa, oh my God. Like, this drag queen is not afraid, to speak her mind and say, like, go to hell. Look at you look like trash. And I was just like clapping, like, this is incredible. And witnessing all of that really allowed me to be like, okay, all right, there's something to actually like speaking up and speaking your mind. And so then when I really started to do the personal healing journey and started to declutter and declutter things and family ties and curses that I felt like that were in my childhood. I had to go through my childhood and think about, some things, and going back to what we talked about earlier about unlearning and undoing. I had to unlearn some things from my childhood. I had to declutter some things that have been literally like shoved in my brain as an adolescent, now that I have had this free way of thinking, that I'm like, okay, this is clashing with what I believe now and what I'm experiencing. So through my healing journey, and as I continue to do the healing work, I realized how important it is to do that healing work on yourself. And as doing the healing work allowed me to open up and free myself and up so much more than I expected. And I'm still discovering so much about myself every single day. And knowing how now it is important, because again, everything comes in full circle. And so by me living my truth, I know that it is liberating even dancers out here in India to live their truth, to see someone like me, And so what if people don't agree with it? Do you think people agree with everything that I do? No. But do I care? Look at my face. Not at all. Like, not at all. Michael Jackson said it best. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and you make the change first. And it's very true. It's very, very true.
Man in the mirror.
We want to change Yes, the man in the mirror. We want to change so much about our outer world, yet we are not willing to do the inner work within ourselves. Let's do the work within ourselves first. And,
Oh, I thought it was from Heal the World.
Man in the mirror. What does it say? Heal the world, make it a better place for you. It's all the same thing. Heal the world, make it a better place. Heal the world, make it a better place. Look in the mirror and make it a better place. Okay?
Actually,
it's all the same, really.
We all just overshadowed and eclipsed Gandhi, by the way. He was the first one to be the change you wish to see. So
I mean, I really enjoyed this. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much. And with that, yeah, we actually are at the end of our episode. And thank you so much for coming to me. It has been a delight. And it was
Yes.
everything that I wished it would be.
I'm glad. I'm so glad.
Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you with a new episode very soon.